The champagne hadn't even warmed in my hand when I heard someone say, "No, seriously, he still asks his mom how to cook rice." And the whole room cracked up. I didn't turn around immediately. I thought, prayed, that it wasn't about me, that someone else, anyone else, was being roasted like a college freshman in a stand-up workshop. But then I heard my name. Oh, come on. It's not bullying if it's Lowell. He's like a walking TED Talk about anxiety. More laughter. And in that moment, standing in the middle of our engagement party, surrounded by people she had invited, I realized something chilling. I wasn't the co-star in her life. I was the joke. I didn't move. I just stood there, letting my fingers go numb around the glass stem, listening to people who had eaten food I paid for, in a space I helped decorate, laugh at stories I'd never given permission to be told. They weren't even her stories. They were our stories. Twisted, turned inside out, repackaged as punchlines. Celine was standing at the front of the loft, grinning, basking in the attention like it was natural light, and she was some solar-powered goddess of humiliation. And the worst part? They adored her for it. She was magnetic, right? Sharp, charismatic, unfiltered. That's what people always said. They just forgot to add cruel. The spiral begins. I didn't cause a scene. No glass was thrown. No screaming match. I didn't even cry. I walked over to the bathroom and sat on the toilet lid, fully clothed, in a blazer that still had the tag tucked inside. I stared at the tile floor and tried to figure out if I was being overly sensitive, or if I had just been publicly disrespected by the woman who said she wanted to spend her life with me. Spoiler, it was the second one. You know how sometimes you leave a party and replay everything in your head on the drive home? I didn't get that luxury. I was still at the party, and the mental replay was already smashing into me like waves during a storm no one warned me about. And that's when I heard it, through the thin wall, her voice. Honestly, I didn't think he'd last this long. He flinched the first time I yelled at a waiter. She laughed. So did Odessa, and some guy whose voice I didn't recognize. That was it. The moment. The door inside me, the one marked hope, clicked shut. Quietly. Forever. The end arrived quietly. When I walked back out, I didn't say a word. Celine was mid-sentence, probably describing another of my quirks to the group gathered like disciples around her. She turned, surprised to see me. "Oh hey, you disappeared." I nodded, smiled, walked up to her. Then I took the microphone out of her hand like I was about to propose all over again. Instead, I said this. "Hey everyone, just a quick update. The wedding's off." She thinks I'm a joke, and she's right. Because only a joke would stay. The silence was cinematic. Someone gasped. I think it was her sister. I placed the mic back down, walked toward the exit. No coat, no goodbyes. I heard her shouting something behind me, but I didn't catch it. I was already out the door, and for the first time in 3 years, I finally felt like I'd arrived back in my own body. You'd think walking out like that would feel powerful, cinematic even, but it didn't. It felt stupid. Cold air hit my face like a slap, and the sound of the city swallowed me whole as I wandered down the block, unsure of where I was going or what I was supposed to do next. I didn't have a dramatic destination. I didn't even have my wallet. What I did have was a phone buzzing with notifications from people who were still at the party I had just walked out of. Some were confused. Others thought I was joking. One text, from her friend Vanya, of all people, just said, "Iconic." That word kept bouncing around my skull like a marble in a jar. Iconic? No. Broken. Humiliated. Untethered. That's what it felt like. I ended up at a closed gas station, sitting on a concrete parking block, staring at a vending machine through the window, as if it might offer me clarity. I kept thinking about her face, not during the speech, but after I said it. After I called it off. She didn't run after me. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there, mouth slightly open, like she'd seen a bird fly directly into a glass door. Mild surprise. No grief. That told me everything I didn't want to know. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the street to clear. Long enough for the ache in my chest to harden into something worse, doubt. And that's when the anger started to rot into curiosity. That dangerous, poisonous curiosity that makes you want to look. Not to find answers, but to confirm the fears you already suspect. So I opened her Instagram. And there it was. A photo, already posted, taken just before her speech. Her in a vintage lace dress. A caption that said, "You either marry the man of your dreams, or the one you can laugh at." Guess which one I picked? My blood went cold. She posted that before she even gave the toast, before the room left, before I stood up, before I walked out. She had planned it. Not the breakup. No, that was my move. But the performance? The punchlines? The subtle dismantling of my dignity? She wrote the script ahead of time. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my best friend Nate's lumpy futon, staring at his ceiling like it held the answers to my emotional ruin. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smiling into that microphone. People clapping. Me, just standing there like a prop in a scene I didn't audition for. I started remembering things I had dismissed, like the time she told me I smelled like unresolved trauma after a therapy session, or how she once said I was great for emotional support, but not exactly inspiring. I had laughed back then, because that's what I did. I let things slide. I thought maybe I was too sensitive. I thought love meant absorbing the worst of someone and thanking them for the chance. But now I wondered, how long had I been her mirror, not her partner? A surface to reflect back all the clever, caustic brilliance she thought made her special? I got my answer the next day. I logged on to Facebook. Don't judge, I keep it for work, and I saw a tag. She had shared a photo album called The Pre-Wedding That Wasn't. 100 pictures, all from the party, all with ironic captions. Under a photo of me handing her the mic. Foreshadowing is real, y'all. Under a candid of me talking to her mom. He thought we were bonding. She was warning me. And the worst, a photo of me hugging her after my toast. Oscar-worthy performance. Too bad he meant it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, perfectly still, as my heart packed its bags and quietly moved out. What no one tells you is that grief doesn't always come from death or cheating or violence. Sometimes it comes in the form of laughter, a laughter that doesn't include you, that uses you, that makes you wonder if the person you loved ever really existed, or if you were just dating the audience version of them, never invited backstage. The worst part? I still loved her. God help me, I did. But the kind of love I had for her was like hugging a statue in a snowstorm. Cold, beautiful, unmoving. It looked impressive from a distance, but up close, it could never return the warmth. And now, all I had was the silence between the punchlines. It came 2 days later. No flowers. No phone call. Just a voice note. That's how she decided to apologize. A 43-second audio message that started with a fake yawn and ended with the phrase, "I guess I misread the room." I played it 6 times, hoping it would transform into something sincere, something bleeding. But it never did. It was just another monologue. No regret. No ownership. Just another scene in her one-woman tragicomedy. And the worst part? She sent it at 2:17 a.m. That wasn't a mistake. Celine always timed things for emotional maximum impact. Middle of the night. Vulnerable hour. That's when she'd whisper things like, "I don't know why I keep hurting you. I think I'm just scared of how much you love me." Sentences like that, beautifully tragic, cleverly evasive, they were her specialty. Designed to paralyze me with empathy, to make me pity her right before I could hold her accountable. She was never cruel, without layering it with just enough charm to make you question if it was your fault for bleeding. I didn't respond to the voice note. I just stared at my phone screen in the dark, lit by her thumbnail image, a black and white selfie she took in a bookstore, pretending to read a copy of The Second Sex. She didn't even like Beauvoir. She just liked the way it made her look like someone who did. I realized, as I lay there, that I had been engaged to a person who curated her personality like a Pinterest board. Aesthetic sadness, digestible intellect, cruelty disguised as candor. And me? I was the plain beige background. A placeholder. A setup for her punchlines. The next morning, she posted a quote on her story. White text on a taupe background. Sometimes people leave, and it's the kindest thing they've ever done. No tag. No caption. But everyone knew. People began reacting with those pathetic heart emojis. A few mutual friends messaged me to ask if I'd overreacted. One even said, "You know how Celine is. She doesn't mean half of what she says." That was the moment I realized something worse than betrayal. I had protected her reputation better than she had ever protected me. I had spent years giving people the edited version of our arguments. I never told anyone about the time she made fun of my hands during a dinner with her old college friends. Said they looked like accountant fingers. I had brushed past the night she laughed when I told her I used to stutter as a kid and still slip up when I'm nervous. I made excuses for her rudeness, turned her sharpness into sass, painted her apathy as independence. And now, she was painting me as the unhinged, overly sensitive ex-fiancé who stormed out over a joke. A man-child who couldn't take a little public teasing. Except it wasn't teasing. It was character assassination served on an eco-friendly plate at a party I helped pay for. That day, I deleted her from every platform. Instagram, gone. Facebook, blocked. I even took down the shared Spotify playlist we had made for the honeymoon we would never go on. I thought deleting her would feel empowering, but it didn't. It just felt like taking down Christmas lights in February. Too late to matter, too soon to forget. But Celine wasn't done with me. Not by a long shot. That evening, Odessa, her best friend and the woman who hosted the engagement party, called me. She said she needed to clear the air. I didn't want to answer, but curiosity is a dangerous drug when you're heartbroken. So I picked up. She didn't even say hello. Her first words were, "You need to stop making her look like the villain." I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. I told her I hadn't said a word to anyone. I hadn't posted. I hadn't spoken. I hadn't even told my own sister the full story. But Odessa didn't believe me. Because, apparently, Celine had started telling people that I'd had rage issues and possessive tendencies, and that she had been planning to end things anyway. I just beat her to it in the most dramatic way possible. I sat there, staring at the speaker on my phone like it had personally betrayed me. Odessa kept talking, but I wasn't hearing her anymore. My head was ringing. A high-pitched whistle of betrayal that no words could reach through. Celine hadn't just hurt me. She was rewriting the narrative, piece by piece, until the final version of our relationship made her the survivor and me the unstable villain. I hung up without saying goodbye. And that night, for the first time, I started to feel something more dangerous than heartbreak. I wanted to expose her. Not to the world. Not even to our friends. But to myself. I wanted to uncover every lie I had swallowed. Every truth I had softened. Every red flag I had painted white because I was too in love with the idea of her to admit what she was. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened the old hard drive I used to back up my messages. The one I stopped using when we moved in together. I started searching keywords. Little phrases she used to throw around. And that's when I found something I wasn't supposed to. Something she had sent to someone else. Months ago, before the engagement. The folder was labeled archive_chat_logs_2022. I hadn't opened it in over a year. It was just something I had set up automatically back when I worked freelance IT jobs and needed to preserve client messages. But I never turned off the sync, which meant that at some point, it started backing up other chats. Personal ones. Celine's too. At first, I didn't even know what I was looking for. I was just clicking through files like a man picking at a bruise, compulsively, aimlessly, hoping it wouldn't hurt as much the next time. But then I saw it. A folder within a folder labeled _message_export temp. Inside were dozens of raw text files, mostly unreadable clutter. But one caught my eye. It was named with her number and a timestamp. I opened it, and that's where everything shifted. It wasn't just a chat. It was a conversation, a long one, between Celine and a name I didn't recognize, Eli, house show guy. My stomach flipped. I knew the nickname. She had mentioned him once, vaguely, in passing. Just some guy I used to run into at shows before COVID, she said, total sinister. I never thought much of it. But this wasn't casual. The thread went back months. Long before the engagement. The tone was flirty, intimate, but more than that, it was cruel. Screens of them laughing about things I'd done, moments I thought were private. Things I'd confessed during late-night pillow talks that ended up as material in whatever comedy she was performing in those messages. In one text, she literally wrote, "It's like dating a distressed Muppet. I love him, but also, how did I end up here?" And Eli replied, "You're a saint. Most women would have eaten him alive by now." The worst part wasn't even the emotional betrayal. It wasn't the text where she complained about me being too cautious or needing reassurance like a golden retriever with abandonment issues. It was the date. One of the screenshots was from 3 days before she said yes to my proposal. 3 days before. And in that message, she said, "I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't even believe in marriage. But everyone expects it, and he's obsessed with me. It'll buy me time to figure things out." That line stayed with me like a shard of glass under the skin. I couldn't stop replaying it in my mind. Buy me time. Like I was a down payment on her quarter-life crisis. Like I was just a soft place to land while she planned her next leap. I sat in silence for what felt like hours. It was raining outside, not dramatically, just a quiet, irritating drizzle. Like even the weather couldn't commit to something fully miserable. I tried calling Nate, but it went straight to voicemail. Probably asleep. I don't blame him. I'd already crashed on his couch for 2 nights and said less than 20 words. But now I needed to say something. Anything. Or I was going to dissolve in that chair. So I did what pathetic men do when they're crumbling. I emailed myself. Subject line, you saw it. Just that. Nothing else. Just a timestamp and a truth. Because I knew myself. I knew how easy it would be to doubt it in the morning, to question whether I exaggerated, whether it wasn't that bad. So I forced future me to face it. No gaslighting. No rationalizing. Just the hard fact. She was already gone before I asked her to stay forever. The next morning, I woke up to a message from her. Not a call. Not a knock at the door. Just a simple, sterile text. Let's talk soon. I think things got twisted. There's context. No punctuation. No apology. No emotion. Just context. That word, it lit something inside me. Not fire. Not pain. Something colder. Something surgical. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like sobbing or smashing something. I felt still. Focused. And I knew what I needed to do. No screaming. No closure. Just truth. And a plan. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to engage in some philosophical post-breakup debate about who hurt who worse. I had no interest in playing co-author to her post-facto narrative. I wanted one thing only, to show her the mirror she refused to look in. So I printed the screenshot. Yes, literally printed it. Then I wrote a note in the corner with a red marker. This isn't out of context. It's out of character, for someone who ever claimed to love. I folded it neatly, slid it into an envelope, and dropped it off at her apartment that evening, taped to the inside of her mailbox. No return address. No signature. Just truth. Undeniable. Undeletable. When I walked away from her building, I didn't feel victorious. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. Of what? I wasn't even sure yet. My self-respect? My spine? My voice? Maybe all of it. Maybe nothing. But I knew I was done being a supporting character in the story of a woman who never saw me as a partner, only a placeholder. And the next day, she responded. Not the way I expected. Not even close. I expected silence. Or maybe rage. A long message full of insults dressed as introspection. I thought she'd at least pretend to feel something. Shame, confusion, regret, anything. But when the reply finally came, it was just a single sentence. You really went full Lifetime movie with that, huh? That was it. No denial. No explanation. Just mockery. Like the entire past 4 years had been a sandbox for her entertainment, and I had just handed her another toy to kick over. I stared at the message for a long time, trying to feel something sharp, fury, betrayal, heartbreak. But all I felt was exhaustion. Not the kind that sleep fixes. The kind that creeps into your bones when you've run out of ways to be surprised by someone. I didn't respond. What could I say? There was no winning here. She wasn't looking for dialogue. She was performing. Again. Always. And this time, the audience was just her. I imagined her reading my note under soft apartment lighting, maybe sipping something in a smug little mug that said, chaotic good, grinning like she was the misunderstood protagonist of her own messy indie drama. But in truth, there was nothing chaotic about it anymore. It was methodical, clean, weaponized indifference. The next day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened. It was her ex, the other one. His name was Damon. I'd never spoken to him, never even seen him, except for a blurry photo on her Instagram years ago captioned, "We've both evolved." His message was brief, calm, measured in a way that felt eerily practiced. Hey man, I know this is out of nowhere, but I think we need to talk. You're not crazy. 5 words. That's all it took to split my reality in half. You're not crazy. It was the one thing I hadn't dared to believe. Even with the screenshot. Even after the party. Even after the voice note and the joke and the way she rewrote history to make herself the victim of my imaginary rage. I still thought, deep down, that I was the unstable one. That maybe I had overreacted. That maybe I was too sensitive. That maybe I was just another fragile man who couldn't handle a strong woman. But those 5 words hit me like a crowbar to the knees. I called him back. The conversation lasted 71 minutes. I remember the number exactly because I sat in the same position the whole time. hunched on Nate's balcony chair, one leg bouncing violently, staring at a dead plant like it might resurrect out of pity. Damon didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just told stories. Quietly, carefully, like a man reading a sealed file he hoped no one else would ever need to open. He told me about the passive-aggressive digs, the subtle public humiliation, the jokes at his expense that didn't land, but always made her laugh, the breadcrumbing, the triangulation, the time she made him feel like he was insane for questioning whether she still spoke to Eli, the same Eli she later admitted to accidentally reconnecting with at a show, even though Damon had seen a calendar invite pop up weeks earlier. And then he said something I'll never forget. She doesn't lie in big ways. She lies with tone, with omission, with timing. She doesn't break rules. She bends them so gently that by the time they snap, you think it was your fault for leaning. I sat in silence, jaw clenched so hard I thought I'd grind a tooth into dust. I asked him why he was reaching out now. Why not months ago? Why not years? He hesitated, then said, because I thought I was crazy too. Until I wasn't. There was no solidarity in his voice, no satisfaction, just that same tired hollowness I heard in my own. After the call, I walked back inside and stared at the ring box I had shoved into the drawer the night of the party. I hadn't opened it since. The box itself was fine, clean, padded, safe, but inside, the ring looked like a prop from someone else's life. Like it belonged to a man who hadn't figured out yet that he was the emotional airbag for someone else's crash. I closed the drawer. I made a decision. I wasn't going to fix the narrative. I wasn't going to warn her next target. I wasn't even going to explain my side anymore. I was going to disappear. Not in some dramatic, ghost her off the planet way. No, that would make me part of her story again. I didn't want revenge. I wanted irrelevance. I wanted to erase myself from her mythology. So I deleted every trace. Photos, notes, voicemails. I even deleted the message from Damon. Because keeping it would mean I still needed proof. And I didn't anymore. Not after what she sent me next. A package. With no return address. Inside, a copy of Gone Girl. No note. Just the book. And a sticky tab on the chapter titled, Cool Girl. The package sat on my kitchen table for 2 days before I opened it. I knew what it was as soon as I saw the handwriting on the label. That slightly chaotic scrawl where every letter leaned in a different direction, like they were gossiping. Even the way she wrote looked performative. Still, I told myself not to touch it. I told myself that opening anything from her meant stepping back into the gravity field I'd just escaped. But on the third night, I caved. I slit the tape with a butter knife, and Gone Girl slid out, pristine and smug. The sticky note on the marked page was simple, for research. At first, I laughed. It wasn't even real laughter, just a dry exhale that sounded like a tire losing air. But then I realized what she was saying. She was comparing herself to the anti-heroine. She wasn't ashamed. She was proud. It was a declaration, a message disguised as a literary wink. You think you know the story, but I'm the one who gets to tell it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the apartment felt amplified. The refrigerator's hum, the creak of the floorboards, the rain hitting the window. It all pulsed like a heartbeat outside my body. I started scrolling through my old messages, not to reread them, but to see if I could trace the evolution of her tone. It was all there, hidden in punctuation. The early days full of exclamation marks and emojis that looked like sunlight. Then, slowly, the shift, ellipses, half-sentences, lowercase dismissals. The slow withdrawal disguised as emotional growth. Somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., I remembered something Damon had said during our call. She collects reactions. That's the real hobby. It hit me then that I was still giving her exactly what she wanted. Every flinch, every sleepless night, every mental replay. It was all just another ripple she'd created. And if that was true, then maybe silence wasn't enough. Maybe I needed to become unreadable. The next morning, I walked into work like a ghost with a to-do list. People tried to talk to me, but their voices came through water. When my boss asked how the wedding plans were going, I told him it was postponed indefinitely. He smiled awkwardly and offered me a coffee coupon. It was ridiculous, but it grounded me. I took the coffee, sat at my desk, and thought about all the tiny ways people show mercy without realizing it. Then my phone buzzed again. A new message, from her, of course. You could have been kinder about it. You didn't have to humiliate me. I stared at the screen. Humiliate her. That was the rewrite, the final flourish in her narrative. I'd ended the engagement publicly, so now she had her villain. I typed a dozen replies and deleted them all. Anything I said would become a screenshot, a quote, an anecdote she'd twist into another story about the emotionally unstable ex-fiancé who couldn't handle her honesty. I powered the phone off and threw it into the drawer next to the ring box. The sound of it sliding shut was almost ceremonial. Days blurred after that. I started walking at night, long, pointless loops through my neighborhood, down streets I'd never noticed before. I listened to podcasts about psychological manipulation, not to diagnose her, but to understand myself. I realized how easily I'd mistaken attention for intimacy, conflict for passion, silence for safety. Every therapist on every recording said the same thing. People show you who they are early. Believe them. I wondered if I ever really looked, or if I'd been too desperate for a story to notice that I was a prop in hers. Then, one evening, I came home to find something taped to my door. Not a note this time, a photo. It was me, taken from across the street, carrying groceries. On the back, written in red ink, "You always look sad when you think no one's watching." I didn't panic. I didn't even check the locks. I just sat on the floor and stared at the photo until the edges blurred. It wasn't proof of danger. It was proof of attention, and attention was her currency. That night, I made a new decision. I wasn't going to block her, hide, or retaliate. I was going to outlast her. No drama, no response, no emotional fuel. I would let her watch until there was nothing left to see. But of course, that's not how stories like this end. Because the next week, someone else reached out, a woman named Lila. She said she found my email through Damon, and her first line read, "I think we've all been through the same thing." Lila's email sat unopened in my inbox for 3 hours. I watched it blink at me from my phone screen like a ticking device, daring me to see what was inside. Her name meant nothing to me. The subject line, "Please read this. It's not what you think," sounded like the beginning of a scam or a trap or something I wasn't strong enough to read without unraveling. But I opened it anyway, because curiosity doesn't wait for healing. Her message was longer than I expected. Organized. Polite. Almost too polite. It started with a warning. "I won't tell you anything you don't want to know. I'll only answer questions you ask. But I thought you deserved to know that you're not the first person she's left with this kind of wound. And probably not the last." That sentence turned my stomach. I'd spent weeks convincing myself I was an isolated case. A rare misfire. The poor bastard who just got unlucky falling for the wrong person at the wrong time. But Lila's tone was steady, clinical even. Like she'd written versions of this email before. Maybe too many. She went on to say that she'd dated Celine 3 years before I did. They met at a conference, same as me, just a different one. At first it was magic, then magnetic, then manic. That's the pattern she described. A cycle. It always started with deep eye contact and laughter that felt like lightning, then quickly moved into confessions, shared playlists, urgent closeness. Then came the quiet corrections, the subtle belittling, the public jokes, the sudden coldness followed by intense apologies designed to make you cling harder. I read the email 3 times. Then I did something I hadn't done since the breakup. I cried, not because it hurt, but because for the first time, I felt something that had nothing to do with her. I felt seen. Lila and I arranged a call. I expected tension, but what I got was eerie calm. She was direct, not bitter, not performative like Celine. Her voice was low and steady, and she never raised it, not even once. She told me she'd been part of a small private group, women and men who had dated Celine in the past. They found each other online. Reddit threads, Instagram follows, mutual blocks. At first it was just a coincidence. Then it became something else. They shared patterns, dates, screenshots, all the little things that don't seem like abuse until you place them side by side with a dozen identical stories. "You're not crazy," she said. "You were just the next one. The next one. Not the only. Not even the last." I asked her why no one said anything before. Why no one warned me? She paused for a moment, then said something I'll never forget. "Because when someone like her ruins you, the first thing you lose is your language. You can't describe it, not in a way people believe. And by the time you can, you're too ashamed to speak." That sentence felt like a key turning in my ribs. She sent me screenshots. Not to prove anything. I didn't need proof anymore, but to show me that I hadn't imagined the way it felt. The same lines Celine used on me. She'd used them on others. You're safe, but not exciting. Sometimes I wish you were meaner, so I had a reason to miss you. You feel like something I should want, not something I do. I recognized them word for word. Then Lila told me something that made my spine go cold. She's still in contact with Eli. The same Eli from the messages. The same Eli I'd confronted her about. The same Eli she claimed was nothing. Lila said they never stopped talking. That Celine once told her Eli was the one person who really got her, even though he was unavailable by design. That she liked that. She liked knowing she could be adored from a distance, but never have to be accountable up close. I asked Lila why she was telling me all this. She could have just moved on, left me to sort out my own wreckage. I did move on, she said, but I never healed until I told the truth out loud. And you don't heal in silence, Lowell. You just rot slower. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay on the floor of my bedroom with the light on, feeling like I was floating above my own life, watching it play out in reruns, screaming at the screen for the character to wake up, to leave, to stop calling it love when it was just loneliness with better marketing. I thought about reaching out to Celine. One last message, just to say I know now. But what good would that do? That would be like handing a mirror to a ghost and asking it to apologize. She wouldn't care. She'd turn it into another performance, another excuse to laugh. And that's when I decided, this story doesn't end with confrontation. It ends with disappearance. Not dramatic, not bitter, just gone. Because some people don't deserve closure. Some people deserve silence. And some people, you only beat by living a life so honest, they can't twist it into anything else. I deleted every last file, every picture, every draft of every reply I never sent. I blocked her number and replaced it in my phone with a single word, remember. But the story wasn't quite over. Because 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No name. No return address. And inside was a single Polaroid. Of me. Asleep on the train. The Polaroid sat on my table for hours, face down. I didn't want to look at it again. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was fatigue. A kind of soul-deep exhaustion that doesn't come from running or screaming, but from surviving in silence. I had no way of knowing when or where the photo had been taken. I only remembered that day in pieces. The sound of train brakes, a kid crying 2 rows up, my coat bunched under my head as I leaned against the window, and finally slept for the first time in days. I must have looked peaceful. Or pathetic. Maybe both. I thought for a long time about what the picture meant. A warning? A message? A joke? But eventually, I stopped asking. Because whatever the intention was, I wasn't going to let it steer me anymore. Celine had been behind the wheel of my mind for far too long, and even without her name on the envelope, I could feel her fingerprints on the moment. The difference now was, I didn't feel afraid. I felt finished. Not broken. Not bitter. Just done. I took the Polaroid and slid it into a manila folder labeled False Starts. I keep that folder in the back of my desk drawer. It's where I put things that once felt like beginnings, but were actually just long, well-lit exits. Photos. Old plane tickets. A sketch she once made of me asleep on the couch. All of it. Not because I want to hold on to the pain, but because pretending it never happened would be giving it too much power. Memory isn't the enemy. Delusion is. For the first time in a long time, I started going outside without needing to walk in circles. I stopped reading into every text message. I started cooking again, badly, but joyfully. I signed up for a pottery class. Nate joked that I was on my eat, pray, cry arc. I didn't correct him. He wasn't wrong. A few weeks after that, I ran into Lila in person. Completely unplanned. We were both at a community book fair, each reaching for the same dog-eared copy of The Bell Jar. We laughed awkwardly. Neither of us took it. We sat on a bench for a while afterward, just talking. Not about Celine. We were done with that chapter. We talked about movies we never finished, places we wanted to see, the odd comfort of grocery stores at night. At some point, she said something that stuck with me. Healing isn't about making sense of the past. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need it to. That night, I slept without a lamp on. No night terrors. No racing thoughts. No imaginary monologues where I finally say the perfect thing and she falls apart. Just sleep. A week later, I mailed something to myself. A sealed envelope. No return address. No postmark. Inside was a photo I took in my new apartment. Me holding a ceramic bowl I'd made in class. The glaze was uneven. The sides were too thick. It wobbled on the table. But it held water. And so did I. I wrote one sentence on the back. You survived beautifully.